So many people look at the bog as a place that just lies dead. Nothing to do for the body, nothing to give to the head. Taking me where the heather and the moss grows, the turf lies, row after row out there in the sun to dry. I breathe it in as I pedal on by where the kids and the dogs mucking together, bringing in the turf no matter what the weather. I'm a bog man. Deep down, it's where I come from. I'm a bog man. Deep down, it's where I come from.
The word bog is derived from the Gaelic word bogach, meaning soft. The bog is in fact a wetland with acid, peaty soil. Because of our damp climate, Ireland is covered with vast tracts of wetlands in the mountainous regions around our coast and also in the central Midlands. Our largest bog is the Bog of Allen, named from the hill of Allen near its eastern edge. This sprawling complex of raised bog is the defining feature of the Irish Midlands. It takes no fewer than 6 counties into its soggy embrace, covering an area of almost 1,000 square kilometres. The Bog of Allen took over 10,000 years to form, as layers of vegetation slowly compacted to become peatland. Not long after the Ice Age ended, the many hollows left by glacial moraines filled with water to form lakes. The surrounding landscape was wooded with hazel and pine trees. Stone Age man set up encampments on the shores of these lakes. Where erosion of the peat has exposed it, you can still walk along the stone beach of one of these lakes, where these first people lived over 8,000 years ago. On this very same beach, the remains of open-air fireplaces were found, along with tools made of flint and chert. These were preserved, together with the remains of meals abandoned by these toolmakers, all sealed beneath the growing bog. During this era, reeds started to grow by the lake shore and then extended into the middle of the lake. These reeds died and decayed to form deposits of peat on the lake bed. Over many thousands of years, this peat built up and up, choking the lake until the peat began to emerge above the lake surface. About 500 BC, the lake had been completely filled in, and thick cushions of bog moss formed a dome over the mass of peat. This dome extended higher than the edges to form a raised bog. Iron-rich ochre seeped out into the water at the edges of these bogs, helping to usher in the Iron Age in Ireland. The dominant plant species on the bog surface are sphagnum mosses. They have the unique property of being able to hold up to 20 times their own weight of water in their pores and cells. Sphagnum mosses, in fact, are believed to be the chief building blocks of raised bogs. The medicinal properties of sphagnum mosses are well known, and there is much evidence of its use as a dressing for wounds throughout recorded history. Indeed, the collection of sphagnum mosses appears to have been carried out on a grand scale across the UK and Ireland during World War I to provide much needed medical dressings. Thanks to the remarkable preservation properties of sphagnum mosses, the bog has evolved into a repository of treasures, both archaeological and natural. Deeper down the peat can yield some extraordinary, well-preserved artefacts, including bog bodies. More than 100 ancient bodies have been discovered in Irish bogs. One of these is Cashel, estimated to be over 4,000 years old, and it is now displayed in the National Museum in Dublin. Another remarkable bog body in the museum, which dates from around 300 BC, has a magnificent head of hair. This hair has been coated with primitive hair gel, made from vegetable oil mixed with resin from pine trees found in Spain and southwest France. Since the loss of our woodlands, bogs became the main source of fuel for many rural communities. The sods of peat, or turf as it was locally called, were cut by hand using a special tool called a schlong. The sods were then laid in the sun to dry, a process that was called footing. The tradition of footing turf is still carried on to this day. This order was often heard in the bog. Heads down, bums up, that's how you foot turf. In the early years of the new independent Ireland, we moved quickly from hand-cut turf to large-scale mechanisation to produce milled peat to generate electricity. However, unable to import British coal during World War II, it was decided to harvest turf in the bogs of the Midlands by hand. This solution gave much-needed employment for thousands of workers and also resolved the fuel crisis. Turf camps were built around the county of Kildare. These camps were run on very strict military lines and provided basic accommodation for workers who came from all over Ireland. Between 1942 and 1947, over 1 million tons of turf was produced by this scheme. It was brought to Dublin by canal, by rail and by lorry. It was stored in the Phoenix Park, where much of it was distributed to the city's poor. After the war, the commercial extraction of peat continued to be developed, and more bogland was taken over to supply energy to a new Ireland. The donkey and creel, the traditional method for transporting turf from the bog, was replaced by the 3-foot gauge railway with specialist locomotive engines and trucks. Over 1,000 miles of narrow gauge railway is still in use today, which is probably the biggest industrial railway system in Europe. The Raise Bog has a diverse and unique flora and fauna, which is as dramatic as its history. Bogs contain 3 types of plants that trap and digest insects. One such plant is the sundew. When an insect lands on its leaf, they get stuck on the long, sticky, hair-like glands. These hairs curl inward and draw the insect in to the center of the plant where it is digested. Other plants that can survive on bogland are the cross-leaved heather with its waxy pink flowers, and the bog asphodel, which is a joy to behold with its tall golden spike which turns to a dark bronze orange in autumn. Several types of orchid are also to be found in the bog, along with the cladonia lichen, which can be spotted by its tiny red specks of fruiting caps scattered over old bog oak. Insects abound in the bog environment and include damselfly and dragonfly. The Lullymore West Bog is home to over 21 species of butterfly, including the marsh fritillary butterfly. This butterfly thrives on the abundant devil's bit scabious, which brightens up this and many bogs in summer. Common frogs and newts are also found in abundance in the many bog pools. Many species of birds are common to this habitat, including the the hooded crow, the kestrel, and the meadow pipit. The bog is now one of the few places left in Ireland where you might hear the call of the curlew. For many hundreds of years, man has exploited the bog for fuel and energy, to the detriment of this unique ecosystem. Now, in a new era of conservation, we understand the need to protect this unique, vanishing natural habitat, and to do so, we have formed a proactive national body, the Irish Peat Preservation Council. This body is preserving this vital ecosystem and the subtle beauty of its flora and fauna for future generations to experience and enjoy.